Hi, I'm here with Katie Kagan, who's a senior electrical engineer at Meta, and I'm here to interview her about her job. So, what was your major, and tell me a bit about your current job?
Sure. So my major was electrical engineering. I was pretty sure when I started college that was what I wanted to do, and I've worked in a few different places. I've been working for about 10 years now, and now I'm at Meta. I work on a group that's doing research around how we interface with AR and VR devices. And specifically, Meta is doing a lot of really interesting research around EMG, electromyography, which is reading electrical signals from the body and using that to control electronic interfaces and computer interfaces. So I work on that group.
Huh. And what does a typical day for you look like?
Typical day. So my days are a bit of a mix of meetings and collaboration with other engineers, some independent work where I'm doing a lot of design work, especially on my computer. So there are certain softwares that I use to design circuit boards or to run simulations and things like that. And then I also have to spend a fair amount of time in the lab. So when we design circuit boards and they come back from production, we have to test them. We have to make sure that they're working well. We have to evaluate and characterize them, which is not exactly the same thing as making sure that they're working well. But making sure that we really understand the electrical characteristics of the things that we've built. So I spend probably, a third of my day in meetings, maybe a third of my day on average working independently, and then about on my computer doing design work, and then probably about a third working on work in the lab and sometimes writing documentation.
Okay. And what do you say is your favorite part about the job?
My favorite part about the job? I really love working in the lab. I really love doing hands-on work. I think a lot of people that I went to school with and that I knew went into computer science, which is, you go and you do programming and algorithms, and it is super interesting stuff. But I really love getting my hands dirty and working with tangible things. So I think it was my very first physics lab in high school where I started playing with circuits, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to do this forever.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
And if you had to say, what would be your least favorite part?
Least favorite? Document writing, probably.
Ooh.
I am not, it's important to be able to write good, clear documentation, because when you pass a project on to another engineer or to a customer or to a partner team, right? So if I'm working with a mechanical engineering team as an electrical engineer, they're my partners. You have to be able to write and document very clearly what you did, a lot of times why you did it, sometimes why you didn't do something, right? So someone might come along and say, well, hey, there's an option for this. Why didn't you consider it? And if you don't write down that, hey, we considered it and we actually found that there were some problems with that approach, then someone else could go and end up repeating that work. So it's important to make good documentation, but I would not say it is my favorite part of the job.
Okay. And then, was this your first job in the STEM field, or do you have one before?
No, I have had several jobs in the STEM field. So my first job, I worked at Microsoft.
Like out of college?
At a college, yep. My first job out of college, I worked at Microsoft on the Surface tablet product line. And I was a designer there, and I actually spent a lot of time in that job going to China to our manufacturing facility. So I would go and test new circuit board designs on the factory floor and make sure that they were, give them the green light, thumbs up to go ahead and produce large volumes of product. And then after a couple of years, I worked at Amazon. So I worked on Prime Air, on the delivery drone system. I worked specifically on the sensors and computers that allowed the drone to fly itself. So the autonomy system, sort of like the same thing in a self-driving car, the computer and sensors that let it evaluate its surroundings and decide where to go. I worked on that part of the drone, and I did that for about 5 years. And I've been at Meta now about 3 years working in this role.
Right. Well, which one of these would you say has been your favorite?
That's a really hard question because they're not... I think I got something very different out of all of them. So my very first job at Microsoft, it was really hard because I traveled a lot and that was very difficult. And I was brand new, so I didn't really know anything. But I worked with some really amazing people. I had great mentors who taught me a lot. At Amazon, I feel like that was where I really got to become more independent as an engineer. So I had, from when I started to when I left, I developed a really broad number of skills. I was able to take a project and really be the owner, be the independent person responsible for that thing. Whereas at Microsoft, I had been working more on a team. And then at Meta, I've had a really interesting experience of working in really early research, which is very different from working on commercial products or even working on the drone at Amazon. And that has its own challenges, but the problems are really interesting. Working with really interesting materials, really interesting techniques, things that there is no textbook for. So I don't think I would say that I have a favorite. I think right now what I'm doing is a really good fit for where I am in my career. But probably if I had started this job as my first job out of college, I probably would have found it very overwhelming. Okay. So I think each job I've had has kind of led me to this point.
Okay. And in this general field, what do you think is like a typical entry-level position?
Typical entry-level position. So a lot of, especially, it's very hard to say, I would say, to start in research. Research is really interesting. Research is really compelling. And so a lot of people really want to do it. But the hard thing about doing research is that, like I said, there's no textbook. So the thing that makes me qualified to work on research projects is the fact that I worked on more textbook kind of commercial products, and I really learned how the industry does things. And now when I'm faced with a new challenge, I have all of that background knowledge and tools to rely on. I think that a good entry-level position for a junior engineer would be working on a large team on one product, because that's going to give you the most opportunities to learn from senior people. And that's really how you learn and grow as an engineer, is by working with senior people and being able to observe them. So if you're working on a big project with a lot of engineers, you may only own like a very small slice of that as a junior person, but you'll have exposure to the whole process. And so I think in general, I recommend people who are interested in getting into hardware engineering look for jobs at kind of larger, more established companies, not necessarily a startup. Startups are fun, but again, you don't necessarily have that team of experienced people around you. It can be hard to learn, and look for an opportunity to work on a group project like that.
And if you were to hire someone, what like traits or experiences would you look for?
That is also a good question. So I think that there are a couple things we look for. So one is just basic physics knowledge. Especially working in research, a lot of our questions that we're trying to answer do come back to just really fundamental understanding of physics and materials.
Right.
And
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Do you do hiring?
I do hiring, yes. I have interviewed for full-time and for contract candidates. Okay. So yeah, I would say we look for really strong fundamental understanding of physics. If you are somebody who relies a lot on rules of thumb, you know what I mean by like sort of, oh, well, you know, this vector should be about 10 because that's what it always is. That's a really bad answer in an interview with me, because I want you to explain to me why that is. And if the answer is, well, that's just how we've always done it, that attitude is really not going to set you up for success in this kind of work. So we look for really strong basic physics fundamentals. We also look for problem solving skills. I think, especially in engineering, you know, you try really hard not to solve the same problem twice.
Yeah.
So it's not about coming in and doing the same thing every day. It's about coming in with the same toolkit every day to solve different problems. So we need people who can think on their feet and be flexible, and who are not looking for just a step-by-step guide of exactly what to do, because I can't necessarily provide that on any given day.
And are there any like experiences or like things that they've done that you would find like important in a person?
It's a good question. I think that there's a lot of talk about internship experiences. I had an internship going into my first job, and I do think that helped me. Even though it wasn't exactly in the same field, it did prepare me to work in that environment. That said, I actually don't think individual experiences are super important. I think people come from all kinds of places. Some people go to schools where they have a lot of access to co-ops and internships and like real almost work experience. There are other people who are very academic, who spend a lot of time in the lab. So my questions tend to be more along the lines of just whatever that person has done, I want them to be able to explain it to me really well, whether that was a personal project or an internship or a class project. So I actually think that specific experiences are less important than how well you can talk about what you did for that experience.
Okay. And you said you had an internship in college?
I did.
Did you have like any other like job, or did you get paid at your internship?
I did get paid at my internship. That was the summer of my junior year, which is typically when a lot of people have internships. I was actually a software engineering intern at Microsoft. turns out I did not like software engineering very much. And that is an okay thing to learn at an internship. It is okay to learn what you don't like as much as it is to know what you do like. And I had a lot of other jobs in college. I was a tour guide for our engineering school. I was a teaching assistant for the intro electrical engineering class. I also worked in the theater, setting up chairs at night for the classes the next day after the orchestra was done rehearsing. I had a few different jobs. Oh, I had my own business customizing Xbox controllers. Okay. Yeah, that was something I did for fun. So, and I actually have talked about that in job interviews. People have asked about it because it's on my resume.
Was there anything in college that you like really loved or found important or wish you had done?
That I wish I had done. I mean, I will say I think that the classes that I took where I did get a lot of that hands-on lab experience probably were the most valuable in terms of directly applicable skills. But I think ultimately, for engineering especially, you learn so much on the job that the best you can come out of college with really is just that strong fundamental understanding. You know, if I think about the classes that probably meant the most to me, it was my very basic classes in physics, electricity and magnetism, basic circuit design and transistor theory. I think these are all, or computer science for programming, understanding algorithms. The specific tools and there's specific knowledge that you'll get on any job that you will, no matter where you go, you're gonna have to learn. And so the best thing to come out of college with is just being prepared to learn. And the way you do that is by having really strong fundamentals.
All right. And have you ever been like interested in other fields, or has it mostly been electrical for you?
I've definitely had interest in my life in other things.
Okay.
My backup in college was to be a comic book artist, so I don't think I think I'm probably pretty happy that this worked out for me. I wasn't that great at comic book art, but I do still do art for fun. I did, I went to Harvard, so I studied electrical engineering there, and I did get an engineering degree, but I took a lot of liberal arts classes, and I think actually all of the writing skills that I developed, having to write essays and papers for those classes, has actually helped me quite a bit in my career.
All right. And you said something about like your physics class. Was that your first introduction to electrical engineering?
Yeah, I mean, I think the very, very first time I ever saw a circuit of anything was in junior year physics in high school, where they showed us how to take a resistor and a battery and an LED and make it light up on a little breadboard, the little plastic thing that you put the circuit components in. That was my very first exposure to actually working in a lab with electronics. And I think something about that was just really magical for me, to take these inert things and put them together and turn on a switch and stuff happens.
Huh?
So. And
would you have any parting advice for someone pursuing a STEM career?
I think my best advice is, here's a piece of good advice I've given to a lot of people. If you're not sure what you are interested in doing, or if you're not sure what jobs or skills you should develop, there's a lot of things you could learn how to do, and it's hard to know which ones are the most valuable. My recommendation is to go look at job descriptions for senior engineering positions. Because junior engineering positions, the job descriptions all kind of look the same. For senior positions, usually those are more specialized. And what you can do is you can look and you can figure out what sounds interesting to you. And also, for the ones that sound interesting to you, what are the skills that they're looking for those people? And then you can find opportunities as a junior engineer to develop those skills. So it can help guide you when you have a lot of options of what you could learn, what's going to actually get you closer to your end goal.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, you're very welcome.